The Huskbuster is one of the best weapons in Fortnite Save the World. It is an extremely hard-hitting shotgun that is good enough to rival mini-bosses. In fact, in a recent video I made on the channel, the best weapons to kill mini-bosses, link to that down below, it is one of my top recommended weapons because it's available in the base game. So not only is it a monster, but you can get this day one if you're lucky enough. Granted, it's not spawning in Stonewood all that often, but it is available in regular missions very, very often, and it is a scavenger variant, meaning if you've ever seen the Stampede before, it is the exact same thing. So I'm pretty sure I put Stampede in the title, though I almost never recommend anybody use it because the Huskbuster is basically a direct upgrade. It takes all of its stats and then it just crafts for cheaper, and it has a slightly less durability, but if you do the math on it, you are saving Sunbeam or Bright Core however you craft it, depending on which one you do. On that note, by the way, if you're not sure Sunbeam or Bright Core, I have a video on that, link down below. As you can imagine, such a legendary weapon has been covered on my channel numerous times, and that is why I have not updated the best perks in over 5 years. But I'm doing it today because someone left a comment in my stream, twitching down below, and also because that video had some misinformation that I need to correct. Back then, it did make sense to run Snare over the 6 perk of Affliction. Since then, Affliction has been buffed pretty significantly. It's a very good choice, and it is definitely my recommended. Of course, if you run it Snare and you want enemies to be slowed down as a utility thing, that's still fine. That works great. It's just not necessary in my opinion. Affliction not only hits much harder than it used to, but it can crit, which is really, really effective and does a decent amount of damage. It's just more damage. The other thing that I recommended back then was reload speed. And the way that reload speed works for weapons that reload one bullet or shell at a time is a little tricky because your reload time of 6 seconds here is not just per shell, it's for all the shells. So when you increase your mag size, you get 8 more shells in this case, or 6, I believe. You go from a base 8 mag size to 14, you get 75% more ammo and the exact same 6-second reload time, which means you are effectively reloading 75% faster. And if that sounds crazy, that is how it works. I've tested this in game. It is almost identical if you do the math. So reload speed is giving you that 75% faster reload, but you're not getting anything out of it. So that is it. Mag size is the same reload bonus and 6 more shells on hand, which is amazing because if you're running a proper loadout in the end game like I usually am, that's like 1,000,000 damage per bullet. That's a lot. That's basically a dead 250 power level smasher worth of extra ammo to have on hand, and of course you don't crit every time, so that's kind of a big deal. And one more thing I wanted to mention that I forgot in the original recording is that Chaos Agent exists now. I do not believe he existed when I made my original Huskbuster Best Perks something like 5 years ago, which I think was an updated version of my previous. So this is our 3rd time now. Chaos Agent exists, which means if we're using an optimized loadout, as I just mentioned, we're not even reloading with the weapon. I'm throwing a frag grenade, we're using Shockwave, we're using Warcry if it's a mini boss. And if you're going to be using Chaos Agent anyway, then not only is reload a dead perk, but having more shells on hand from mag size is hugely beneficial. Now I am getting ahead of myself. I feel like the perks are pretty hard to not spoil. I've shown this weapon 1,000,000 times on the channel, and it's part of the reason that I never updated that old video, but I felt like I should tackle it today. So the reason we run crit rating crit damage on this is because you can. If you really don't like gambling, you could run double damage. You'll do a lot of damage, it'll be fine. However, this weapon hits hard enough. You can see over 100,000 damage without anybody in my lobby. I do believe I have a shotgun loadout on, so let me go ahead and switch that off. We'll talk about that in a second, don't worry. But without a shotgun loadout, you can see my 144 copy is still doing 88,000. That's plenty for basic enemies, and you're going to want to be critting if you're going up against a bigger target like a Mist Monster, a Smasher, or especially a mini boss. I said it's one of the best weapons in the game. I mentioned it's really good for mini bosses, and I do mean it. If you pop a wafer with Toy Rockin' out, double crit damage, up against a mini boss, you get a Warcry in there with Chaos Agent, you stack everything together, it'll sit down a mini boss solo. You can pretty much solo the mini boss depending on the modifiers. It is that strong, but you're only doing that with crits. So my recommendations is mag size, of course, we definitely talked about that. The 6 perk, Affliction, in my opinion, you can do Snare if you want. It doesn't make the biggest difference, but you do want your 5th perk to match. You can have extra damage versus Mist Monster and bosses. It is technically better for the first few shots, because I've explained this a lot in my videos, but I'll say it once more because it's a best perks video and I want to explain these things. Damage to afflicted is doing nothing on your first hit. Then it's doing 45% extra on your next hit, which is an average of 22.5. Then on your third hit, you're on an average of, 45, 90, split 3. So now it's a 30% average damage bonus on your third hit. It's only on your fourth shot that it actually starts to match miss monsters and bosses. So it's technically better to have miss monsters and bosses for the first few shots, but you're usually going to be firing more than that, and damage to afflicted affects everything. It's just kind of a funny side note that I figured I should mention. And then, of course, double crit damage. If you want to run double crit damage, that is definitely a very, very fun option, but it is going to require a loadout. Now, I have a very thorough video linked down below on the best shotgun loadouts in Fortnite Save the World. That goes way deeper than I'm about to, but I can at least explain a little bit of what we use and why. Beetlejuice is not the right one. So Buckshot Raptor is unlockable at level 100 in the collection book. Unfortunately, if you're an endgame player who is trying to max out your collection book, you can, I think, get Raptor out of birthday llamas if you're incredibly lucky, or you need to book him. In my opinion, shotguns are way too good in Save the World. The Huskbuster is the best shotgun in the game, in my opinion, but there are so many other fantastic options, and he is such an incredible hero that I would not want to give that up. And it is pretty much gambling just to be rolling for a crit and hoping you get lucky on that, and that's where Totally Rockin' Out comes in. With Totally Rockin' Out active, you have usually like a 60 to 70% crit chance, which means, of course, you are more than likely to crit, and now you're not just gambling, but you're leaning into crits very consistently, and Battle Beat and Fumble can make that very consistent. Fumble is just eliminating enemies and hoping to get a football. That is when I'm feeling lazy, which is sometimes it happens. Subwafers are the more consistent way. This is Main Stage Quinn. All of these rad heroes are available in the Rad Llamas during the Blasted Badlands season, I think. I don't know. The yearly timeline is linked below in every single Fortnite video description. It's an extremely good resource to keep up to date with everything. But yeah, Battle Beat Subwafers is probably recommended, but I like being lazy with Fumble. Now, if you are using double crit damage, you absolutely want wafers. You want to make sure you can crit. If you're just running a basic crit build, hanging out with friends, whatever, Fumble's fine if you're being lazy. Now, I mentioned Chaos Agent. It is seriously recommended when you're going up against a mini boss to eat your wafer if you have it, lay into the mini boss until you're empty on your magazine, then War Cry, a full mag size, and then maybe wafer again if you'd like. And then when you run out, start throwing a frag grenade or a shockwave. I mean, it's awesome that you can use an ability that will do lots and lots of damage while reloading your weapon instantly. And if it's 14 shells, that's a lot. If you crit on all of those, 14 times, I don't know, 1.5 million crit, that's like 21 million damage with one reload. The Huskbuster is insane. And then, of course, I mean, Shell Shock, like, Shadow Headhunter is here, and you should use her. And I don't even know how much I emphasize the new Eternal Wanderer in my video, because she does nothing for damage, but everybody's played Save the World and ran around a little bit. You know that double sprint stamina is huge. I did not realize how huge it was until I started using her more consistently, and now I'm addicted. If you don't care about sprint stamina, you're chilling. There are lots of options. Again, the video I'm linking down below is going to be a lot more thorough, but some quick suggestions are Wukong, every 6 ranged kills you get an explosion, pretty good for crowd clearing. Then you've got, Fight or Flight, you could have some extra War Cry bonuses. Rex is usually my go-to because he adds once per second, you get to have an extra damage bonus on top of your shots. And the Huskbuster is a medium fire rate shotgun, so like the Ground Pounder alternative shoots a lot faster, does a little less damage. So Saurian Might is active maybe every other shot. It's pretty consistent. It's nice to have a little bonus, but it's not a huge deal. Then you can use Locked and Reloaded from Skull Ranger Jonesy and Trooper. They both give you 15%, and if you're reloading a lot with a shotgun, which you usually are, maybe, Huskbuster's got 14 rounds with mag size. That's a lot to get through, so you're not reloading between every single kill. This bonus might not even be active, so all I'm saying is all of the remaining damage bonuses are pretty minor, and Eternal Wanderer is just way too good. So yeah, there you go. That's the Huskbuster. That's how awesome it is. That's why I haven't updated this video in forever, is because I keep making other videos on the Huskbuster. And here's an updated best perks, because the old video was just, it was outdated and wrong. So it was outdated because it was recorded at a time when Affliction wasn't as good as it is today, and it was simply wrong because reload is just not something you should use. That was a part of the game I didn't understand fully at the time, and I learned shortly after, but then 5.5 years went by and here we are. So yeah, and then there's a bit of a loadout suggestion if you guys are trying to run this weapon optimally. It doesn't require a loadout, but This will help. So that's it. I'm out of here. Goodbye. Subscribe. Use code Mista at your checkout if you guys want to support me in the shop. And I'll see you guys in the next one. And then...